So we have Lina here. She's an author, and she's actually building a whole brand around her writing. And so I want to talk to you about your writing, but also about your story, what you like, the journey that you've had to go through to get to where you are now. Kind of just like your mindset on breaking outside of the box. Obviously, you're not doing what you thought you were going to be doing. So just speak a little bit to like your background, your upbringing, what led you to where you are now as an author.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about my history. So I grew up in Egypt. That's where I was born and raised. I came to the United States. My family moved to the U.S. about 9 years ago. I'm 23 now. I came to America at 14.
Wow.
So definitely a lot of my core values and foundations that I built was more on the Egyptian, Middle Eastern culture, more so like conservative and traditional culture there. And basically talking about the three infamous like occupations, which is like engineer, doctor, lawyer type. That was kind of like the societal acceptable norms. Like you can be those three, especially as a female too. You don't really have that many options.
Really, it's more encouraged as like females.
Yeah, because over there in that culture, the Eastern culture, females have to be like well educated, very like conservative, very focused, because anything else is basically you're like not as valuable. Like I think your value came from your accomplishment rather than just kind of like existing in your own energy.
I feel like there's so many like schools of thought now of like what women should be, and like some people it's totally against like the traditional career, and some people it's like only the career, and then there's like that balance of like having a family and still having your career. It's like so many like extremes. I feel like I don't know. It's so interesting. Like even in like the conservative side of things, there's a lot of people that think like the woman should be the homemaker. So
that's a very long conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, that's a tangent we don't need to go down. But I thought that was really interesting.
A lot of opinions on that, right? And a lot of thoughts. But I what I'm trying to say is, as women in the Eastern culture, there's definitely like a lot of pressure to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And definitely be a homemaker and like a good wife and all of that, but it's just built upon this image.
Yeah.
Like an outside image without really considering your more so inner energy and who you are on the inside versus who you are or who you seem to be to the world.
Like what are your actual passions?
Yeah. But basically growing up with all these thoughts and norms around me that I was encouraged to be something, and in my head I didn't know better. So I was like, you know what, great, I'm really good at math, I study hard, I work hard, I'm going to be an engineer. And I know I told you a little bit about my family. There were some engineers there, so kind of just following that legacy without kind of thinking, well, what do I want? What do I need?
Right.
All of that. But I just worked really hard. Everything that I've done in school kind of brought me up to be a successful engineer, as you can say. So I did end up getting my degree in architectural engineering. I went to Drexel University. It's in Philly, PA. But that's like my professional background. But how did I come to poetry, I think is the question.
Yeah.
So I think when living life and you do things, and whether the reason is you're doing these things, but if it's not really your true authentic self, I think eventually you're gonna start feeling something is off. Like, this is not me. Like, you're gonna start questioning the things that happen, the things around you, especially when challenges become about. So senior year of my college career, I was basically like two classes left to graduate, and I was like, I don't think this is for me, because I did.
Oh gosh.
I worked before my senior year. I worked as a structural engineer for a firm in Philadelphia.
You got the experience.
Yes, I definitely got to touch the basics a little bit, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I had this image, this pre-planned destiny for myself, and it just wasn't it for me. And I think because I only had a plan A and a plan A only, and that was it. Like, I didn't think anything in the world was gonna change that plan or ruin that plan or whatever. I completely like crumbled. I fell apart. I was like, well, okay, what do I do now? I don't have anything else. I don't know anything else.
Spent 4 years working for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. 4 hard years, man.
That's crazy.
But
were you communicating this with your parents at the time?
That's a really interesting question, because I definitely tried to push through it as much as I can right before I completely because it takes a lot for me to say I can't do this anymore. This isn't for me, because there is the part of being afraid, because I don't want this, but what do I want? I don't know. I don't have another thing to go present to them.
Clear path.
You know, yeah. And then there's the being afraid and feeling guilty, because they worked really hard, and our move to the U.S. was a lot of sacrifice on their end. So now I feel guilty because I'm basically like crushing their own dreams for me, or their own image that they created for me. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, it was a tough conversation, because that generation, and I'm not wronging them for how they think or what they are. It's just me finally understanding that's how they grew up, and that's their vision, which is okay. But in their head, they didn't just truly understand that I didn't want this, and there was more things in life to do, you know? And poetry or writing, speaking for me was truly when I can just be me. Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm forcing it. I don't feel like, not that I'm not working hard, but I'm not giving it everything in me, and it's still it's not working. You know? It was a very natural process, very refreshing in a world where everything seemed super dark. Yeah. You know, for me at least in that moment, because the book came, like I was saying, let me go back, 2 classes left to graduate. Senior year, with the touching the basics of that work experience, I realized it wasn't for me. I did talk to my parents, but it was always like a very touchy, sensitive conversation. So I'm not sure what it did. Even right now, now with the job that I have, because I still work in the professional field of construction. That in itself is its own challenges, and trying to pull away from that, focus more on other things.
Is the goal to quit that eventually?
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, definitely. But it also comes the same thing, being afraid, feeling guilty, because you gotta understand there's still the reality of life and responsibilities and just things that you have to take care of, unfortunately. But it's just reality, because you gotta find that balance, or at least for me, I have to find a certain balance and find the right time. And sometimes you have to just do it. You know,
just take the risk.
Just take the risk 100%, because you're taking a risk on yourself, and I feel like that's definitely worth it.
It's a worthwhile risk to take, because even if you fall on your face, you're developing who you are, and you're learning something through it. And I can relate with the parents too. I feel like, at least in my experience, there's an element of just having to break free from what it was your parents thought you were going to do. And I'm sure there's parents out there that just want their kids to be entrepreneurs and stuff. But I think the majority of parents want their kids to have a safe career, to have something that's reputable, and to do something that's got good benefits and all of that. So it's they want their kids to be safe, but if you want to go and be creative and explore something new, that's a risk. That by definition is going to be risky. It's not going to be safe. So it's there's the parents want they want the best for you, but in my experience, you do have to be able to step away and find yourself, find your own identity and
Exactly.
really just take the risk, like chase whatever it is, because when you're passionate about something, like it's not about the money, but the money will follow because of the creativity and the energy that you're putting into that. So
Exactly. 100%. And I think you said something very interesting, like finding yourself. I feel like a lot of people walk Earth and they don't really know who they are. And I feel like that's the biggest disadvantage that or disservice basically that anybody they can do for themselves and they can do for others in the world.
Yeah, untapped potential.
Yeah. Exactly.
We'd have the cure for cancer right now if we had more people tapping into their potential. Like
maybe,
it's crazy because I think like people just they start to just like live for that like bi-weekly paycheck or weekly pay, whatever it is, and it's just like they're just like living. They're not really like experiencing life. They're not contributing to the world. Exactly. It's just kind of like getting by, and it's so sad because our school system trains people to literally do that. So,
and I've also realized how easy it is to just surrender to that type of lifestyle.
Oh yeah,
girl. Like
you get comfortable.
You get comfortable and you get disencouraged. You know, I truly think it's almost like a disease.
Yeah,
you know, and it does work for others, but I just feel truly there is so much more to life than that. Like, you have to give yourself the opportunity to explore yourself. Basically, what we're saying, and truly doing that, I don't believe it just comes from a 9 to 5 or that. For me, there's more. I need more. There's always more, and I think that's just kind of like the brand as well. And can't wait. We talk a little bit about that too.
100%.
But let me just kind of go back to how I came to poetry. So senior year came about, decided this isn't for me. That was like the first realization of I've spent 22, 23 years on this pathway, and now I came to a point where that pathway is just not serving me. I thought it was serving me, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was a dark moment in my life, a hardship, like a very hard phase. I was going through that realization and also like a really interesting breakup. But that's a conversation for another time. So
great combination right there though.
Yeah. Like,
do you feel like there was any correlation between like two different aspects of your life changing at once? Like it led you to realize what you really wanted to do?
You know, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think that breakup or just that whole relationship itself was reinforcing. I was in that relationship as a reinforcement of me surrendering to the path that I was already going on.
Yeah.
And breaking up, it's like everything that I believed and everything that the vision that I had completely like vanished. It was like destroyed, gone. So I was really left with just me, confused and just not knowing what to do. And to be honest, like I definitely had so much inside of me, like emotions and thoughts and just like energy, so much that I was just like, as a result of the things that were happening.
Right.
And I didn't know how to process them. I didn't know what to do with them, and it felt so heavy, and it felt like a responsibility for me to deal with them. And that's where exactly when writing came about.
Yeah.
I tell this story because I just think it's really funny. But
let's hear it.
I swear, like when I tell you that for like 3-4 months, what I did was, like, I still, just so you know, because people think that I gave up. I didn't give up. Like, I was still studying. I was still continuing on that path. I was still studied hard. I still went to work every morning and did the best job that I can do. But with all these, because it was like doing numb stuff. Like, I'm just doing it. But it was still, it's very important because it's discipline, and you have to still be responsible. But when I came home, I had really like bad insomnia.
Mm.
You know, and it's real. Insomnia is a real thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
that's tough because that compromises your energy and ability to do anything else.
absolutely. But I working 8 hours and studying for another 8 hours and then coming home being tired but not being able to sleep. It's like almost like your brain and your body was telling you something in your day didn't process right. Mm. And it's now processing because it just your body really will react to the things that's been happening around you.
Away.
Yeah, exactly. So I had bad insomnia. I couldn't sleep. And when I tell you, I just picked up the pen and the paper. And when I tell you, for 3 to 4 months, every night, I would just write for like 5 to 6 hours. Like, write.
Wow.
Write. That's why the book is called Her Thoughts Past to Midnight.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, but I would, because I would be like trying to sleep and it's like 11, 12, and then I would just stay for like 6 hours. And I would still go to work at 7 in the morning. Girl, I was going through it.
Crazy.
Yeah. So,
you know, it's one thing I wanted to say. I hear people talk, like authors specifically, about like how they have to force themselves to write all the time and how it's such like it's so hard for them to like put a pen to the paper. And to you, like from what you're saying, it seems like it's so much easier for you. Like it's just a natural flow of like your heart and your mind kind of like,
you know, labeling it easy is interesting because it may seem easy, but it's actually really hard.
Yeah.
and I'm not saying writing was the hard part. It's just understanding what that writing is and what to share and why am I sharing, especially like that piece of writing or piece of poetry, and what do I want that piece of poetry to do to people. You know, that was the most important thing. Like when I wrote the book, it wasn't just like a random I'm writing a book. It was
intentional.
Definitely intentional, because I was like, what story do I want to tell? And what do I want people to gain from that story or relate to that story? You know, that was definitely very important. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. So it's the hardest part, like just coming up with like the idea of writing, or like would you put it all out there on paper and then it was like editing it down? Like how was your strategy?
Of course, I wrote as a form of healing me and connecting with me again and finding my truth.
Yeah.
You know, because it's really hard to find your true self. But writing did that for me. And one day I woke up and I started rereading things as like a form of reflection. And I was like, this is definitely more powerful than I can understand. Like, I thought I was just writing stuff, like emotional dumping or something like that.
Just getting it out there.
But it really wasn't. It was very powerful words that I put on paper. And I remember I called my sister. I was like, I think I'm going to write a book. I think I'm going to make this more. And it did something for me because I was like, see, when I share myself to the world like that, I think it healed me even more because I was able to put my true self out there and seeing people's reaction to it. Obviously, you have the interesting reactions, which is by all means fair and well and good. But you also have like the true people that can connect with that type of writing and life experience.
Yeah. That's gotta be a great feeling to like have somebody experience the writing the way you intended for them to experience it.
You know, and it comes full circle because I was there and now I'm presenting my experience to you, for example, and then you are taking my journey and making it your own with whatever that you're going through in that moment.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of how I describe the book to people, if you allow me to just So basically the book it's a collection of individual pieces of poems. each poem is kind of like connected to the next one. So there's a story. It's not just like a bunch of pieces, like random pieces like that. I wanted it to connect. Like I wanted to create this image. Yeah, like a story, an image, a feeling, an experience for the reader. That was very important for me. And I think that was a huge part of the success of the book. But basically, it's kind of broken into like 4 themes or 4 stages of life and love. Because I think it's easy to say the book is about love and like romantic relationships, but I feel like love is basically also life.
Yeah, it's universal.
Yeah. So it kind of starts off with the idea of love, right? I think we as humans and females especially, we're kind of conditioned to have an idea of love and say, this is what I want in my head. I have a checklist. Like I have to check everything off that list, and I know exactly what I want, and nothing else.
A whole list.
Yeah, like this is exactly what I want. I have a vision, right? And nobody is gonna like ruin that vision for me. But as we go into a relationship, and it's kind of about knowing who you are. When you go into a relationship and you actually experience what love is and experience other aspects of love, right? Because there is like suffering in love, the compromise, all these other byproducts of being in a true loving, unconditional, like loving relationship. You learn about yourself and you get disappointed, you get stabbed in the back, and you get, you know, betrayed, all these things. So I like it because it gives you this like innocent, pure idealization of love in the beginning, but then it goes into the truth, like the more in depth other exactly. So it kind of jumps you back to betrayal, like, and it tells you how you can be betrayed in love and therefore kind of like betraying yourself, and it then goes on to like the emotional roller coaster of all these experiences. You're kind of like, it's like the high and the low. Like you're up, you're down, you're chaotic, you're just like kind of like all over. You're just insane. You're going crazy. And then in the end, this slows you down to like this beautiful state of almost like a survival mode. Like it takes you out of that and brings you back to like your power and your worth. So it, again, it's coming full circle.
Yeah.
And people can truly relate to how raw it is and how truly it is coming out of the heart and the soul, you know? And that's how I like to write. Like, I don't like to, not sugarcoat it, but I don't want to put any layers on it. I want it to come out exactly how it is felt from inside, you know?
I think that's such an important topic too, because I don't think people really talk about the other aspects of love. Like love is sacrifice. Love is going to be painful at times. It's going to require you to be uncomfortable. It's going to require you to make compromises, and like we have this idealized version of love, like in society, where people think it's just going to be sunshine and rainbows, and then as soon as there's a storm, it's like, okay, divorce or breakup or whatever.
Right.
It's like, you have to fight for that, because that, like, you're not gonna be in a relationship where everything is gonna go your way. And whether that relationship is supposed to be or not, like, you finding yourself and you truly giving yourself to someone is going to like be painful.
Absolutely. And I love that we're saying this, because it brings us back to me going on that pathway, and I feel like we can't be in a true relationship that we're able to sacrifice and fight and go through the hardships without truly knowing who we are, and knowing our strength. And that's why I said earlier, like, it's such a disservice that is out there that people do unwillingly, if they truly live life without truly knowing like who they are or who they even want to be. You know?
Really quick, I wanted to go back because we kind of glossed over the fact that like you didn't even come to the U.S. until you were a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you want to like go into it, but like, what was it like growing up in Egypt, like compared to seeing how kids are raised here? Is it a huge difference?
It's definitely like an enormous difference.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have grown up, or I've grown up with the people that I've grown up with. Definitely, there was some things that happened that made me who I am today. Just, I guess revisiting your childhood is a very important step in life to do.
Yeah.
I think that's the journey that I'm on right now, at least.
I've had so many friends come and tell me about the like, inner child healing. Like they do, I guess, like workshops and stuff, which is so interesting to me because I'm like, I don't want to like get into that, you know, like, but it's so important, I think, to really like look at like how, like what made you who you are, like what, whether it was good or whether it was bad, like what did you go through that maybe like has made you the person you are? Because everyone has blind spots, so that like allows you to kind of see into who you are.
I love this question, you know, and I've read this thing. I don't remember where I read it, but they said it's funny how, as an adult, all the things that are fulfilling to you and all the things that you love and make you happy are the things that you were kind of interested in childhood originally and kind of like fell away or disappeared when you grow up. And I love this question because, like, I think in Egypt, kind of, I was talking about how conservative and traditional the culture was. So mental health and kind of like emotion in itself wasn't really a thing.
Okay.
Like, it was there. I feel like we all knew it was there in the family, but it wasn't talked about. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't looked up at as something normal.
Yeah.
So as a child, I actually used to write a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense.
I wrote a lot as a form of expression, and because I felt things from experiences and went through things, and again, it was just always writing that did it for me. Like, it made me feel like I can just be who I am without having to be even like a 0.5% untrue. Because I feel like a lot of the, and this is normal life, we don't fully put ourselves out there. Like, who we truly are is never ever really out there. Yes. Yeah. But for me, in writing, even people who are like family and husband, wife, they're never truly like out there. Yeah. And people never truly know each other like 100%. But I know me and that pen and paper,
you're raw. Yeah.
Yeah. So that in itself is a very interesting thing. But yes, I used to write a lot, and I would just throw it out, and just I never looked back and understood what that writing was. I actually kept some poems, but they're in Egypt. I don't even know. Yeah, I would
be cool to like make a book and like rewrite or like a flashback.
Girl, I would do anything to find. It was like this yellow binder, and I remember it. And I had like a bunch of pieces of poems like random like that, and it was in a binder, and I didn't bring it with me because at the time I didn't think it was worthy. I didn't think it was a valuable thing. But kind of now as an adult, to me looking back, that probably has the keys to unlock everything, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Is there any way that legitimately
it's probably still in Egypt somehow.
Yeah.
When I go back,
you're gonna find it.
Probably still there. I will look for it and definitely determined to find it.
Have you been back since?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Do you miss it?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's home, you know, but it's a scary thing now because it's been like 9 years. 9 years is a lot of years. I've changed like tremendously. I'm sure everything over there changed too. So I don't know what it's gonna be like. I feel like I'm an immigrant to the US, so people who are immigrant, people who leave their home and create a home elsewhere, I feel like for me it feels like I don't really have a home. Like, there's no home, but everywhere is also home.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just wherever you make it.
Yeah, because you lose the sense. For me, let me talk about myself because I don't want to talk about how people feel. But I think you kind of like strip from the sense of belonging, because I feel like a lot of us as human beings, we want to belong to something or somebody, and we want to go back home. We want to have a home, a place that is ours. And I think, to me, coming to America was, erasing that experience from my life. It's a hard thing. Learning to kind of understand what that did to me, how it affected me. So I'm still on that journey, girl.
Yeah.
So.
Do you feel like you'll ever have a sense of belonging here, or like do you feel like is that something you can create, or is that just something you have?
You know what? I just learned that you gotta belong to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you will carry you everywhere you go. And if I'm happy here, I can be happy anywhere. If I'm not happy here,
it's an inside job.
Yeah. It's an inside job, 100%. Because it's always like these talks about, well, all I need is just quit my job and move to like the other side of the world, and everything's gonna be great. But it's just like,
you gotta be happy where you're at first.
Yes, girl, and you gotta make sure your environment is there for you.
Yeah.
Like what you're around and who you are, because who you are will reflect on what's around you. I think you make or break your reality.
Right.
So
I love that perspective. That's I think you do have to find something in yourself and something like a higher power outside of yourself that you can just lock in with, and then like at the end of the day, if you have that inner happiness, you can create that anywhere. You're going to be able to carry that with you. But like there's so many people that think more money, or quitting their job, or traveling, living somewhere different, having a spouse, whatever. They think these like tangible things are going to make them happy, but they're not happy where they are. And it's like, if you can't figure that out on your own, you're just going to carry that all with you to whatever the next situation is.
100%. And again, it goes back to like knowing who you are, because I think when you know who you are and your worth, and truly have like an understanding of who you are, you can then understand the happiness that you need and create that happiness for yourself and for everyone around you.
Yeah.
And it's a
So you mentioned how like writing is where you are most raw and you're able to just be your true self. And I wanted to ask, is that something that you feel like everyone can do? Or is that just something like certain people are writers and certain people have different expressions? Or do you feel like everyone could learn to do that and express themselves through writing?
You know what? I feel like we are all creatives and artists and poets. I feel like everyone can create a beautiful thing from their experiences, their emotions, the things that they go through. But I also understand that people put themselves out in different ways. Writing was the way for me. Can you create a beautiful piece of poetry from an experience in your life? Probably. It just depends on the person and what they are looking for. But I do believe that we all can be poets and create beautiful art and poetry.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many different kinds of art and different ways for people to express themselves. I feel like, so I did write as a child, but it was like, I had this like idealization of having like a book. And so I would force myself to write because I was like, I just want to have a book, because I loved reading. And it wasn't necessarily like, I did enjoy writing, but then it became something. I was like 10. So I don't know if this carries any weight, but I was just like, it was like I was working a job writing this book, and I never finished it. I forget what it was even about, but I was just so into reading that I would then try and recreate stories, and so I liked creative writing. But now I'm at a point where with like business and just that whole world of entrepreneurship and opportunity, that I'm at a point where I'm like, at some point I'm probably going to want to share this with people. So if I write, I feel like it'll be to share it, which is I think a component of what you were saying also is you want the experience for the people reading it. But I feel like that's also like a different motivation to a degree of like, I may not necessarily enjoy the process. I may hire a ghostwriter or something. But I do want to share that with the world.
I love that. I love that you're saying that, because I think as creative and people, we have to share our story. right? And that's what I did. I shared my story through my blog. But I think that you're sharing my story and your story through this podcast.
True.
That's
True.
basically writing. Because words is
It's a spoken word as opposed to the written.
Exactly. I think people are watching us talk, but this can be easily a script to read. And we're both writers right now.
Right. There
so
you go.
I truly
I'll
think
take it. Add that to my resume.
I truly think that we can all be writers because we all know we all speak and words very strong.
Yeah.
Words are very influential thing. So we gotta be careful on how to use our words. But yes, I think we all can be writers. I think we are all writers. It's just how you wanna.
Yeah.
What type of writer you
what
wanna
medium
be.
are you gonna use to do that? Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are the next steps for you? You have the book. You built a brand around it.
Sure.
Where do you see that going?
Okay, this is a scary question. This is a scary question.
You don't have to be super specific, but as much as you have.
The brand. So yes, of course, the book came about. Created a brand around that book, around me. I know that sounds a little narcissistic, but it's not.
Not at all. No, I mean, you're the author.
I think again, it goes back to creating a story and an experience. I think it's very important to create an experience around a product. And that's what I did with the brand. So basically, reading is sexy is our motto because reading is sexy, first of all.
Girl, I'm with you on that.
I think reading is important because you're teaching yourself, you're just becoming more knowledgeable. You can read information. You can read poetry, for example, which is more so like a creative side, something that is more an emotional guide to connect with yourself. So any type of reading is very important. It makes you a well-rounded person, and it makes you understand and know yourself better and be better spoken too. Exactly,
you're a very well spoken person, whereas a lot of our generation, it's like we need to pick up a book. Some vocabulary.
Yeah. So and that's the thing about reading is sexy too, because I feel like our generation where reading is like a have to do thing.
Yeah.
And it's not. I don't think it should be that. And then making people feel sexy or playful or fun, when they're reading, kind of encourages people to read and make them feel good about themselves when they read, So that's just the idea of the brand. We do have some merch, and I actually created a perfume.
No way.
Yeah,
I did not know about this.
It's new.
Okay.
It came out October 1st. So it's been out for a month. The perfume is obviously called Her Thoughts Pass to Midnight.
And where can people find?
So everything is on my website. Okay. Instagram is the best way to go. But it basically, I think you know what? I think I have here. I'll show you something. Let's hear it. So this is basically the postcard of the perfume. And it's a poetic scent. I don't know if people can see it. But it basically reads, poetry is not just words, it's a full range experience. Poetry is spicy, sexy, and seductive. To sense and to smell, to feel, to be poetry. So I think the brand, if you want to take a look.
It's good. Hopefully I can see it. If not, we'll do a picture over.
It's cool. But I think, again, this enforces the idea that poetry is an experience.
Yes.
Or the poetry that I'm putting out there is an experience. I want people to feel sexy and good and empowered when they're reading it. And the perfume the notes in the perfume are based on the book, because the cover from the front is magnolia, the magnolia flower, and then the back has the rose. So that's the notes. And then I also put in Egyptian oud, of course, for the spicy
where did you get this idea? Because I feel like your brand it's not like strictly poetry. It's almost become like a lifestyle. Like it's like poetry as a lifestyle because you have like multiple different merch products you mentioned. I don't know if you want to like go into the other ones too, but what was the inspiration for that?
So again, it's about being poetry because poetry is so sexy and hot, and it's just like, look at me.
It's
look
like
at
you.
know?
I'm gonna think poetry was sexy. Like that's
But
totally,
you know, that's the thing. Like it's just
making it fun, bring it to our generation.
Absolutely, you're creating something that people thought or had this narrative about for the longest time, but it's not like that. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be this feeling.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's really powerful marketing too. Is like being able to rewrite that narrative and reframe what poetry is, as well as like building that entire brand out, because like that's what marketing is. It's like building a narrative in your audience's head of like, oh, like this is actually something I need, and identifying that need with our generation. Like
absolutely
they would be so much happier if they just read more. Like it's a really like empowering thing to be able to
and
read.
I have so much, again, our generation, the females in this generation, when I talk to them about the book, it's the same way I just talked with you about it now, they almost get like a sense of relief, like thank you for sharing this, because I always feels like I'm the only one, or I'm going through this alone in life, and I'm so, honored and grateful to have shared this with the people and the females of the generation, because if I can just have you connect with one word, one piece of poetry, anything that I say you can connect with, my job is done. You know, that's exactly, and it's a very important thing to do in life.
Yeah,
very powerful, because you never know how that person is gonna take it, and it can stick with them for the rest of the lifetime. But yes, the brand is super important to me because it's who I am, and whoever wants to join me on that journey, you're welcome on. I just want females especially to feel really good and be empowered and smell good, look good, feel good.
Have a good mental like state.
Exactly. So that's what the brand is. Just my vision for the brand and it's as a whole. Obviously, I want to continue growing. I want to continue growing the brand itself. I am writing the second series of the book right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's gonna come out.
Do you have a release?
I do not have a release date.
Okay.
Not yet, but soon.
Okay.
Soon,
That's exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited for this one to come out. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm pumped for that. Yeah. Well, I know we're probably getting close to 45, but I wanted to ask you one last question about like, because we've been talking about brand a little bit. Are you building like a personal brand as well? Like as far as social media, like do you plan on like building an Instagram or building do you have any desire to put yourself out there in that regard?
100%. I do have a poetry page on Instagram right now.
What's it called so they can find you?
It's Poetry by Lina.
Okay.
At the end, 3 A's.
Okay.
But I'll give it to you. But yes, I'm kind of rebranding a little bit right now. Just because in my life right now, I'm going through finally making the hard decisions of truly starting the other pathway in life and completely leaving that behind, because I truly believe it's ran its course. It's not serving for me anymore, so it's just, believe it or not, rebranding me, the brand itself, and just kind of, this is the journey that I'm going on right now with knowing myself.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the amount of amazing poetry that's gonna come out of that, insane.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Oh, I'm excited. There's that's like a commonality that like all the entrepreneurs I'm talking to right now have, is like building a personal brand, because I think, it's 2023 now, like everyone is on social media, everyone under the age of like 50, and so it's almost like that's your business card of today. It's like, what's your Instagram? Like that's how they can see you, see who, if you have like a podcast, if you have YouTube channel, whatever, like they can get to know you better. But like like having that online presence, I think, is so like influential just in like people getting to know you, building that community, building a relationship with your customers, or building a relationship with your clients. And I think it's something everyone has to get on at this point. Like,
yes, 100%. So stay tuned because there's a lot of things coming. It's coming and it's gonna come big.
It's right around the corner. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to link everything. We'll put it all on the video. But I feel like this podcast was so good because every time you would start talking about something and I would have like a question in my mind, you would answer it before I could even ask. So you'd be like talking about something, and you're like, and because, and like I was like, okay, like she answered the question.
I am an author.
You're a natural. You are a natural. Yeah, you got to start your own podcast.
Yes. Girl, I told you a lot is coming.
Yes. All right. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Awesome.
Yes.